Why is it that some players improve faster than others? We probably all have that friend that we hate because they started guitar after us and then they got better than us in like 1 month. Well, it turns out the answer might be less about what's going on in your hands and more about what's going on in your head. Studies show that practicing in your head can be shockingly effective. In fact, there's evidence to support the idea that people who only have minutes to practice can supplement with mental practice and get the same results as someone who practices for an hour. That's big if true, and it has major implications for those of us who are busy and struggle to make the time to practice and be consistent. In this video, I'll break down the fascinating science behind mental practice, and I'll teach you how to do it with simple activities you can do just about anywhere. By the end of the video, you'll have all the tools you need to practice guitar in your head and make progress like someone who spends way more time playing guitar than you do. Many, if not most of us, have trouble with two things when it comes to practicing guitar. First, we usually don't have enough time to do as long of a practice session as we should. And second, we are inconsistent and we miss days in between sessions. Unfortunately, those two things matter a lot for your progress. Take someone who does an hour a day religiously versus someone who does 15 to 30 minutes every 2 or 3 days. After just 1 year, they will be on different planets musically. And the absolute most important thing is consistency. Without consistency, you fall into the vicious cycle of having to use every practice session just to relearn what you worked on last time and get back to where you were. But what we're here to explore today is, can mental practice bridge the gap if you don't have that kind of time? Because you can't take your guitar everywhere, but your mind is with you all day. And even the busiest person can use it during downtime to catch up on practicing. So how effective is mental practice really? Researchers have been trying to answer this question for decades, and the results are pretty fascinating. One study from the University of Chicago tested a group of basketball players, splitting them into 3 groups. One practiced free throws physically, one practiced entirely in their heads, and one didn't practice at all. No surprise, the no practice group did not improve at all. But what's crazy is the group that practiced mentally improved almost exactly as much as the group that practiced physically. Another study, this one from the BMC Medical Journal, explored how mental practice compares to traditional hands-on learning. Participants were medical students who needed to learn how to do a procedure called a structured facial examination. One group used a mental training approach, visualizing each step of the procedure, while another followed the standard see one, do one method, watching and then physically performing it. The results show that those who relied on mental rehearsal outperformed the hands-on group, demonstrating better accuracy and consistency in executing the task. Now, these are only a few of many studies, and admittedly, the results for other mental practice studies aren't exactly as promising. Thankfully, in 2023, a group of researchers actually analyzed and combined the results of all the quality peer-reviewed studies out there. They made 2 really useful conclusions. 1, it turns out mental practice is actually not as effective as physical practice, but it's still much more effective than no practice at all. 2, if you combine mental practice with physical practice, it becomes highly effective. So let's take a look at one more study real quick. This one's specifically about music to illustrate these conclusions. In this study, researchers looked at a group of pianists. The group was tested on learning a piece of music with just mental practice. Then later, they learned another piece of music with just physical practice. On the mental practice day, they got 30 minutes to sit with the music and use whatever mental strategy they wanted to get it down. Then they were tested on how many notes they could remember and how well they performed the music. Then, and this is very important, they were given 10 more minutes to practice physically for a bit and test it again. Now, on the physical practice day, they came in and they were asked to not use any mental practice strategies at all. Same thing, they had 30 minutes, but this time it was just to sit at the piano and work. Here are the results in terms of the number of notes memorized. For mental practice, they averaged 242 notes. For physical practice, they averaged 326 notes. So as you can see, mental practice is great here, but it's not as good as physical. Now, it's worth noting, pun intended, that 242 notes is about 3/4 of 326. So you could argue that mental practice is 75% as good as physical for memorization. But here's where it gets interesting. What happened to the mental practice group when they were given just 10 more minutes to physically practice? Well, their note count shot up to almost the exact same as the physical practice group. Now, first I thought, so what? They got the same score, it's not better. But then I realized a key detail. The mental practice group spent only 10 minutes physically practicing versus the other group's 30 minutes. So now, let's say you're trying to get the value of 1 hour of practice, but you just don't have that hour. Well, using the numbers from the study, you would only need 20 minutes of physical practice plus an hour of mental practice to get the same results. Yes, it takes more time to get there, but the kind of time matters since mental practice time is way easier to find. Now, in all reality, we don't know if the numbers work out like that or not, but it's food for thought, and the biggest takeaway is this. With mental practice, even the busiest person has time to improve their playing. So let's talk about exactly what mental practice is and how you can get started. I'll break it down into 3 levels and I'll give you practical drills you can start using to supplement your practice today. The first level of mental practice is just listening. For example, listening to recordings of the music you're working on. But it goes beyond that too. There are levels to listening, from passively enjoying a song to critically listening for all kinds of musical details. Now, listening is the least effective type of mental practice because it's usually pretty passive, but it's still something, and it will help you prepare better for real practicing. It's especially important if you're learning a style that involves creating or improvising, like jazz, blues, or even rock. Listening critically to the genre of music you're learning helps put that stylistic language in your head, and it helps you develop a sense of how that language is used in context. It's kind of like watching a show in a foreign language you're trying to learn. It really helps train your ear a lot. The next level of mental practice is visualization. Visualizing is more active than just listening. You can do visualization in a lot of different ways. You could imagine your hands playing the music, like visualizing exactly where your fingers go on the guitar fretboard. Or you could try motor imagery, where you're using your mind to almost feel the familiar movement of your hand on the instrument. In the study with the pianist, those who use visualization strategies still didn't have a ton of success in their actual performance though. It's great for memory, and it's a little less effective to help your overall performance. So once again, these strategies help set you up to make your physical practice extra valuable, but that physical practice is definitely needed. And level 3 of mental practice is study. Believe it or not, some of the best results from mental practice came from study and analysis. The pianists who used these kinds of strategies had the most success. In particular, here's what was the most effective. Score study. Those who were able to look at their sheet music and almost sing it in their head had great results. And that means, by the way, it's worth it to work on your ear, because that's hard to do. Form analysis. By breaking down the music into smaller chunks and seeing how they all fit together, they were able to more easily relate the parts to the whole and remember it better. Theory analysis. Even taking a look at the music theory on whatever level they were able to was useful. By looking at the theory, you can get a little bit more of the why behind the what, so you're not just learning by rote, and it has function and makes sense. These 3 levels of mental practice give us an opportunity to practice in a lot of different ways. And while there's good, better, and best here, what's really nice is that everything helps. And you know me, I love a good prescriptive exercise. So let me give you some specific mental practice exercises, and I'll show you how and when you can do them. Activities for level 1, listening style practicing. 1, listen to a recording of the music you're working on to get a better mental representation of it. Listen on repeat to catch all the details. It'll help you know what to shoot for when you're physically playing through the music. Listening more will help you say, no, that's not right when you're practicing. It'll make you work a little harder to get it to sound closer to what you heard when you were listening. Number 2, record yourself playing and listen critically to that. That can be a great way to show you what you need to work on to make your music sound better. If you're practicing, you're usually in the role of player, and it's hard to also be in the role of listener. Coming back to a recording of yourself in the role of 100% listener will help you catch a lot of things you don't when you're preoccupied with playing. Number 3, try to put the music on like a record in your own head. It's a great sign that you know your music if you can reproduce it in your head without actually having to listen to a recording. If you do this and you find you draw a blank at certain points in the music, you'll know you need to listen better at that part next time. So when to do this? Well, these activities are great for when you're doing something that doesn't require much thinking. Try doing this when you're commuting to work, when you're cooking, cleaning the house, doing yard work, or when you're exercising. And now activities for level 2, visualization style practicing. For the first activity, let's look through a card from Practice Pilot. This is a card game I created to help people have fun while practicing guitar. So as you can see, this card is aptly titled Mental Practice. Let's read the activity here. With your guitar nearby, close your eyes. Now visualize the instrument with your fingers and start playing through your music in your mind. Go as slow as needed. The only rule is you must visualize every single finger on every fret and know exactly where it goes on the guitar. If, or maybe when, you get stuck, stop. Open your eyes, grab your guitar, and try to play the part you forgot. Spend a moment ironing it out with your guitar, then get back to work playing the music in your mind. It's great if you can do as the card suggests and combine it with some physical practice, but you can do a condensed version of this as well, just in your own head. Number 2, drilling. Find the hardest parts of the music you're playing. Drill them a lot physically so you know how to play them, and then drill them mentally when you have a short moment. Now these visualization activities take more focus, but not a ton of time, so they're perfect for mundane parts of your day, like when you're waiting in line, taking a coffee break at work, or waiting to pick your kid up from soccer practice. Normally you'd probably fill this part of your day with doom scrolling on your phone, but now you've got a perfect reason to get off your phone and do something more worthwhile. And finally, activities for level 3, study style practicing. First, we have score study. For this, you need to have a printout or just a PDF of the music or the tabs or even just the chord lyrics chart of what you're working on. Pull it out and read through the music like you're reading a book. Try to hear the music in your head as you do so, and try even visualizing where you're supposed to be playing. This is great to do if you're on the bus or a plane or you're waiting in the lobby for an appointment. Second activity is form analysis. I'm not going to lie, this one feels like going back to school and doing homework, but it's also the most effective for fast learning and memorization. Get your sheet music or your tabs out. Mark where all the sections are in the music. For example, if you're dealing with a pop song, label the large sections, verse, chorus, bridge, etc. Then you go inside each section and label each phrase. A phrase in this case could be anything that feels like a complete musical idea. Phrases tend to be 4 to 8 measures long, so keep that in mind. Now, you can't exactly do that just anywhere, but if you have the stomach for it, or if you can bring yourself to do it even once, it will pay big dividends every time you practice thereafter. Next time you got some free time at home, but maybe you can't make noise practicing, try doing that instead. So let's quickly recap. We've looked at the science behind mental practice, and while it does not completely replace physical practice, it is far better than doing nothing. This means you no longer have an excuse to have a day with zero practicing. Mental practice can be up to 75% as powerful as physical practice, and you can do it just about anywhere, so do it. And we learned that when paired with even a little physical practice, mental rehearsal can help bridge the gap between you and someone who practices longer. We also broke down the 3 levels of mental practice: listening, visualizing, and studying. And I shared some simple ways to start incorporating these techniques into your daily life. Whether it's listening with intention, running through music in your head while you're commuting, or mentally drilling tricky sections when you got just a few minutes to spare. If you're someone who struggles to find time to practice or stay consistent, mental practice could be a game changer for you. It's flexible, it works, and it can help keep you moving towards your goals even on the busiest days. So why not give it a try? Start with something small like visualizing a passage before bed tonight, or listening to a recording with a fresh focus tomorrow on your way to work. The key is to start building this habit into your routine one step at a time. Remember, progress doesn't always come from how much time you have, but from how you use the time you've got. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments. And if you're trying mental practice for the first time, I would love to hear how it's working for you. I know, speaking for myself, I get a ton of value out of studying music during the early phases of learning it, and I love using visualization to strengthen my memorization before I play concerts. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos to help you on your guitar journey, and happy practicing.